Welcome, everybody, to the 17th episode of Stories from the Last Territory, a podcast that covers the golden years of wrestling in Puerto Rico. My name is Luis Cuevas, better known as the Caveman, and I am your host for this trip back in time to the greatest feuds in the history of Puerto Rico. If you like what you hear and see, please subscribe to YouTube here in the link below, or in audio at Spotify as Stories from the Last Territories. Today, we're going to be talking about probably my favorite angle or storyline or feud of the golden years of Capital Sports Promotion, the Carlos Colon versus Stan Hansen angle that covers the end of 1986 into the spring of 1987. A feud so successful that even had its own VHS tape that is available, all of it, in YouTube. You can check it out in Armstrong Alley. Just type Stan Hansen, Carlos Colon Feud, and you'll be able to see all the matches that we're going to be discussing in this feud. And I believe it's the only feud of Carlos in tape from start to finish. And it led, honestly, to the peak of the golden years of the 80s, that period between, in my opinion, November 86, October 86 to anniversary 87, where everything Capital Sports Promotion touched turned to gold. What I love about this feud is that every match leads to another, and every match tells a story, and it leads and builds all the way to the blow-off match at the cage in March 1987. Before we dig in this feud, as most are aware, Stan Hansen originally came to the island in 1984 and had an incredible run with Bruiser Brody that led to the highest attendance match in the history of Puerto Rico, Anniversary 84, in a feud that we covered in a previous episode of this podcast. Since his absence, he had continued to be starring, of course, in All Japan and in Japan, and had won the AWA World title and had the difference of opinion with Vern and was looking, where he crushed the title allegedly with his truck and sent it back to Vern, and was looking for a place to wrestle between his Japan tours. During this time, Carlos Colon had just won back the Universal Heavyweight title in Anniversary 86, and what was a great success, and was in need of a new contender for the fall and winter months of 1986. The feud started very simple. On TV, Chiqui Star mentioned that he had an opponent for the past of Carlos Colon that wanted to take the title away from Carlos, and that it would be Stan Hansen, that he'd be coming back to the island to finish business with Carlos Colon, who on TV, following the announcement, made a short recap of what was going on in the career of Hansen up to that point while he was gone from Puerto Rico, and they show a couple matches from his run in 1984, and that way people remember who was Hansen. The first match between them was on October 12, 1986, that happened on Roberto Clemente Stadium, and this match is awesome, setting up Hansen as this type of wrestler who was super aggressive, that just bulldozed over Carlos Colon from the first moment to the last. Carlos sails and sails and sails and sets up Hansen as this dude that Carlos had no answer for by the end of the match. I mean, Hansen had gotten so over in just 5 minutes and making people believe that, man, Carlos really has no answer for this man. He really has Carlos' number. And people were literally afraid that Carlos was going to lose the title that night. What a match to set up this monster heel. At the end, Carlos finally makes his comeback, but Art Perez interferes, and Hansen puts something in his shoulder pads and beats Carlos Colon to win the Universal title, to the shock of everybody in Roberto Clemente Stadium. But in TV, the following TV show, the commissioner, Huracán Castillo, reversed the decision and placed the title back in Colon's hands, which set up another angle between Castillo and Hansen manager, Chiqui Star, that was getting furious that Castillo continuously was butting into the Chiqui Star Sports Club's business around this time. The second match, the rematch in November 9 in Hiram Bison, that field tells a great story. In this one, Carlos doesn't waste time. He doesn't let Hansen get to the ring. He finally figured out the monsters, and he's aggressive from the opening bell, not letting Hansen basically breathe. And Carlos just won't let Hansen have any offense, into the point that Hansen is just all desperate. He's bleeding, and he has to load up his shoulder pad, and he hits Carlos in a desperate move to escape the onslaught of Carlos to pin him. After the match, Castillo comes in and reversed the decision, and it led to Hansen attacking Castillo and finishing Carlos with a pyro driver. It was a short match, but what a story it told that, in this one, it was Hansen who had no answer to Carlos Colon. This set up an end of the year tag team match between Carlos Colon and Huracan Castillo that in the 70s were known as the Atomic Team, joining forces back again to face Chiqui Star and Stan Hansen in December 21st, 1986, at the end of the year card in Irán Bison. And this was a super packed house. And this match, it was a wild brawl between all four. Into the end, Stan Hansen, in a desperate move, hits Carlos with a bull rope and chokes him out with the bull rope into the faces, made the save. He threw Carlos Colon over the third rope with the bull rope, and he looked like he was going to choke Carlos Colon. Carlos Colon was not going to make it alive. And the faces made the save, and Carlos Colon is carted out in a stretcher, setting, guess what? A bull rope match for the Three Kings Day card to be held January 6th at Roberto Clemente Stadium. During this time, the period were between December 21st and January 6th. They show videos of Carlos Colon training in a farm, that he has retreated to this farm to train for this match and to make sure that he got comfortable with the bull rope, as he recognized that this is a match where the Texan has an advantage, but that him being in the farm with the cows and the bull ropes has helped him prepare, and that he will be ready to surprise Hansen in this match. In another interview, he has the owner of the farm, Doña Tia, and he said that he's going to dedicate this match to her because of her letting him train, and that she represents the people that he's representing in Puerto Rico. The promos were excellent for this. In December 27, Hansen saying that he has a couple gringo friends in the island spying on the training that Carlos Colon has been doing with cows, but that Carlos Colon was so dumb. He started milking the cow, thinking it will help him with this type of match. It was a wild promo. He starts explaining what a bull rope match is and what is going to happen in this match. An awesome promo of Stan Hansen, who really delivers as this great heel with some great promos during this run. The match in January 6th is awesome. It was a complete sold-out with standing room only for this bull rope match. It has it all. It has blood. It has great storytelling. It plays with the emotions of the fans every time. Hansen's going to hit the third, and you see Carlos pulling the rope on his knees and just trying to get Hansen to stop. Fans were super involved, living and dying with this match. You can tell in the video, the fans were just living and dying with this match. Carlos Colon holding on for dear life. The match is a must-see. And I believe, in my opinion, it has to be one of the top 5 matches of all time in the island because of how involved the fans are in this match. The ending, what a pop. Kids flying up in the air, people having sex, drinks for everyone. Unbelievable match, unbelievable ambience. And you see people, so happy that Carlos pulled it off in this match and beat Stan Hansen. Next week, Carlos came in television saying that he had run Stan Hansen out of Puerto Rico and he was moving on, but not so easy. Chiqui Stars invite Carlos Colon to his sports shop, and the segment starts with Chiqui Stars that usually saying that he usually have stars, but on this occasion, they didn't have a star. They had garbage. Then that is Carlos Colon. Carlos Colon, which led to Carlos getting mad and telling Chiqui that he would leave. He started not stop disrespecting, and they went back and forth. Carlos tell production to put the ending of the bull rope match, and when they come back, Chiqui Star just loses it and starts berating Carlos Colon, saying some of the most racist things under the sun, calling him this, calling him that, and spitting on Carlos Colon, who, when he was going to put his hands on Chiqui Star, is attacked by Stan Hansen with a chair, and it's one of the worst beatings on live TV you can see. And he beats Carlos Colon with this chair, and Chiqui Star is like, finish with him. He's doing all this Mortal Kombat. Let me help you. And then he ties Carlos Colon up with a rope and starts riding him like a bull while Chiqui's going, let me finish with him. Let me help you. And joining Hansen in this beating of Carlos Colon while Hansen is just riding him like a bull. It's just the visual to this day. People are surprised it's even made it to TV. If you ever see one video of Puerto Rico, you have to see this one because it's one of the wildest things you're gonna see as a professional wrestling fan. So Carlos Colon was so humiliated by this that he said that he was contemplating retirement and that he was not sure he will ever come back to wrestling. For the following weeks, we had Hugo and other faces worry about Carlos and if he will ever come back, and that, his mental state and stuff like that. In the January 25th, 1987 TV program that is in Amsterdam Alley, Chiqui Star was gloating about eliminating Carlos, who has not to be found, and he's asking, "Where's Carlos Colon? Where's your champ? We don't see him. He's embarrassed. We took him out of the wrestling." And Hansen cut one of the most incredible promos in the history of Puerto Rico. He started by saying that when he was growing up, he had this small dog, and that this dog did not obey him. He kept coming in and eating the feed, and he will whip and whip, trying to get him to behave, and that but the dog will not listen, and he will continue. So one day what he did, he beat him so much that he broke his fighting spirit. And after that, the dog was never no good, and he had no choice but to put him to sleep. He said that Carlos was that dog, and that he did the same thing that he did to that little dog that he had growing up, and that Hansen had broke Carlos Colon's fighting spirit, and that he would never be the same. The old Carlos was gone forever. It was such a killer promo. It's unbelievably good how good this promo was. And it just set up, Hugo saying, "I cannot believe I had to translate this and this and that." Hugo followed Carlos the next week, trying to talk to him, and he's got him outside a building. And Carlos looked like a homeless guy, and Carlos mentioned that he was done with wrestling, and that he looked like it, and that this was the end of the career of Carlos Colon, and that that's it. He was embarrassed to face the public after Hansen had ride him like a cow. The following week, Invader in TV mentioned that they were gonna go to Carlos Colon's house, and the Justice Army was going to have a meeting with Carlitos to bring him back and convince him not to stop wrestling, but to gain revenge on these two bastards, Hansen and Chiqui Star. After weeks, finally, on February 15 TV show, Hugo mentions that they have a surprise for everybody, and they had this interview with Carlitos, and it's a new Carlitos Colon, motivated, and he corrals Carlos Colon in a gym, and he has that fabulous Pro Wrestling Illustrated shirt that as a kid I would have died to have. Carlos mentioned that, yes, the help of the Justice Army, but it was mostly the fact. It is kind of weird. He mentioned that the fact that the commissioner had told him that his 30 days to defend the title was coming up. If not, he would lose the title. That woke him up. He's like, "I ain't losing this title. Hell no." And that is the title of all Puerto Ricans, and he's just a representative. And if he failed, he had failed Puerto Rico. And that woke him up and put the embarrassment behind, and that he was coming back, and hell was coming with him. And he made a promise that the next time he see Chiqui Star, he was going to break Chiqui Star's leg for being the henchman and the mastermind, and then he was going to eliminate Stan Hansen, and Hansen will never step back foot in Puerto Rico. He did this Wire Earth promo. It was awesome. The February 121 show was dedicated in full to the rivalry of Colon versus Hansen, with them mostly showing all the matches that led to the situation, and then they announced a cage match between Carlos Colon versus Chiqui Star the following Friday in Ponce. On the February 28th, they show the highlights of the night before, Carlos Colon breaking Chiqui Star's leg when he put the figure four, and Carlos would not let go of the figure four leg lock, holding on to the ropes. After the match, Colon picks up the microphone and challenged that son of a bitch Hansen to step in the ring while he's still in the cage. He's saying, "You tried to interfere before. Come on now. I'm waiting for you, you bastard." And it's like, "You're not coming? Well, I'm going to continue beating Chiqui Star." And he goes back to Chiqui Star and keeps beating him and putting him in the figure four leg lock again, trying to entice Hansen to come to the ring. This is just a great angle here. And finally the refs and everybody convinced Carlos to let Chiqui go, and then they mentioned that he had indeed broke Chiqui Star's leg in Ponce, and that Chiqui Star had to wear a cast from now on. Carlos in TV caught an interview talking that tonight he was going to beat Hansen and gain revenge now that he got rid of Star, and that in the Gran Bison Stadium, not even a miracle, or like Carlos said, ni el Doctor Chino who saved Hansen. That night, Carlos came like a madman, jumping Hansen before the bell. It started as they fought all around the Gran Bison Stadium, with Carlos using the bull rope as a weapon and Hansen running for his life. Until finally, Carlos put the figure 4 leg lock in what seemed like an eternity. Hansen screaming in pain, fighting, not wanting to quit. And Carlos using the ropes at the end to try to break Hansen's legs into, I don't know, where Chicken Clutches shows up, gives his clutches to Hansen. He uses to break the hold for the DQ, and then they fought for the clutches, and a wild brawl ensued with Carlos trying to chase Hansen to the dressing room, and the refs trying to hold him back, and he beating up the refs, and then cutting a very passionate promo to the fans in attendance that in the name of his mom, he will kick Hansen out of the island. Due to the interference, Carlos asked for one last match. The blow-offs of blow-offs, a cage match against Hansen to finally settle the score. And that match was signed for the Mets Pavilion Stadium in Guaynabo in another great match that saw Hansen and Carlos Colon had a wild brawl. Carlos put the figure 4 leg lock, and the rule breakers tried to interfere, but the Justice League Army was ready. And while Carlos had the figure 4 outside the ring, there was an incredible brawl between the rule breakers and the fan favorites all around the Mets Pavilion. It looked like a Wild West movie with fans jumping up and down. I mean, you guys have to see it. It's great visual. Sad that we don't see that nowadays. Finally, Carlos Colon is tired of beating Hansen and leaves the cage to win and finish Hansen, and joins the wall brawl in the outside, running away the heels. And he cuts a promo saying that this is it. And that was basically the end of the feud. But this feud is awesome from start to finish. The storytelling, the promos, the matches, one led to the other one into finally the blow off. It's the perfect perfect feud in my opinion. It's my favorite of all the feuds of Carlos Colon in the island, and I highly recommend that you guys check it out in Armstrong Alley. Check all those shows in Armstrong Alley from October 86 to March 87 to see all the promos, to see the wild stuff that was this great feud of Carlos Colon. And it's Stan Hansen. Stan Hansen left the island. He came back to do spot shows for the anniversary show, and I believe his last match that he ever came to Puerto Rico was against the Missing Link in anniversary 87. Carlos Colon, right after this, started probably the second highest ticket feud in the history of Puerto Rico, and selling tickets against Hercules Ayala that started in March all the way to January of 89. So, I mean, this period of Capital Sports Promotion, again, between October to anniversary 87 is just gold. I mean, it's some very, very good stuff. So this is my recap of the Carlos Colon Stan Hansen feud. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. We're going to be back in track. I apologize for the inconsistency with this podcast, but I'm back on track. I already have next week's episode on tape. So you guys should enjoy it. We're going to be talking about the Castillo versus Miguelito Perez feud in 1991. Into that, please support the page, support the YouTube channel. Let your friends know if you guys like it. Share it with them so that they know a little bit about wrestling in Puerto Rico. Into then, like I always say, hope you guys are doing good. And sayonara, mi amigos.